Let's jump ahead. In about a few months from now, we're going to actually have the consecration service of the tabernacle in the desert. And in the consecration service of the tabernacle, the heads of each one of the tribes brought certain offerings. And Aaron was not asked to bring those offerings. So Aaron said, well, why not? Because I was there when the golden calf was made. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe God doesn't want my service. So the Medrash, the correlated sources tell him, don't worry. Your job is the menorah. Your job is the menorah. And that lasts forever. The menorah lasts forever. So the question is, the menorah in the temple doesn't last forever. You're going to tell me we like the Chanukah menorah? But that's not the menorah. That's a remembrance of a miracle that happened to the menorah. Matter of fact, how do you know it's not the menorah? Because our Chanukah menorah has how many branches? 8. How many branches did the menorah in the temple have? 7. Yeah. So it's not the menorah of the temple. It's representing the miracle that happened to the menorah of the temple. So what does it mean when God told Aaron, don't worry, your mitzvah, your commandment of the menorah is far superior to anything else anybody else is bringing in consecration to the temple. Because your commandment, your menorah will last forever. Well, it doesn't. Second question is that when Moses actually had to build the menorah, and it's pretty complicated. Now, if you ever looked in the how the Torah says that it built, it had to be about one big piece of gold. Everything had to be curlicued on it, and there was flowers curled into it, and basins, and it was. I've never seen a picture of it. It's a lot of work. I mean, he has to be an artisan, an unbelievable artisan. So Moses tried many times to build the menorah, and he wasn't unable to. And finally, God said to him, don't worry, just throw your pile of gold into the fire, and the menorah will come out. Why was it so hard for Moshe to build the menorah? If you ever saw a picture of what the ark, the Aron was, that was done. The tabernacle was done, but the menorah he couldn't do. Why was it so hard for him to build the menorah? So evidently, the menorah stands for something that's at the edge of human ability. Something we can touch, but not totally encompass.
Divine.
Huh?
Divine.
Well, what is it? So the Talmud tells us as follows. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when God created the world, he created it with his light. Now it means as follows. That Hashem created, he shone his light. And we learned many times that light represents, when light is refracted, it is the spectrum of color, which means it refers to everything God created. But if there is such a word as re-refracted or reverse refraction, it is the color. It is a non-colorless color white, which is the amalgam of all colors. So what it means that Hashem shone his light is that he shone his absolute oneness over the whole universe. And he saw that the universe could not exist that way, so he withdrew that light. And it's called the Ar HaGanos, and he hid that light. Now you remember we learned on Hanukkah that how long did the original light shine for? We learned it shone for 36 hours, represented by the 36 candles of the Hanukkah menorah, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Okay? We learned that on Hanukkah time. But for our purposes tonight, Hashem withdrew that light because we couldn't live in it. We've learned this before, that Hashem originally wanted to create the world to live in strict justice. But human beings sin. So God said, I can't ask the world to live in strict justice. Strict justice means the first second you do something wrong, you're zapped, you're gone. The world can't live that way. I gave human beings choice. Human beings have to have the right to choose to do wrong so that their ability to do right means something. But if I zap them every time they do wrong, they will have no ability to do wrong, so they'll always do right, and therefore their doing of right won't mean anything. So therefore, Hashem had to withdraw his intent of creating the world and reacting to the world in strict justice, so that we would have the right to be wrong. Dudley, do wrong. So the same thing, the same concept refers to his light. His light is a reflection of his oneness. Justice always means that everything is in exact place, which is a reflection of oneness. When Hashem saw that he could not leave the world in bathing in his original creative light, he withdrew it. We've also learned that the capacity of Hashem's light is in reference to what we call the midah, the quality of das, of intellect. We've learned that there's three aspects called chachma, which is wisdom, bina, which is extrapolation of wisdom. A equals B, B equals C, ergo A equals C. And then there's das, which is the ability to perceive patterns of existence. The more you see God, you see him in the patterns in our existence. Physical existence, spiritual existence, and historical existence. So the more you're able to utilize his light, which is his oneness, which means that everything is an absolute pattern, the more you see through the concept of das, of intellect. And this is what happens over here. What happens over here is Hashem says, I have to withdraw my light because the world can't live in it. But I'm not going to make it disappear. I'm going to coalesce that light in the light of the menorah. And it's for you to access. Now, how do you access this light? How do you access the light of the menorah? By studying the intellect and soul of God, which is his Torah. So the way to access the original light of creation is through using the light of human intellect shined on Torah to perceive the intellect and soul of God himself, which he has vested in his Torah, and thereby you experience the original light of creation. There you go. I'll answer all questions if we finish.
9:15 or 9 because we.
I'm going to see how this goes. I don't want to overdo people here. So probably 9:15 at this point. So listen to how it goes. There is something very unique about learning Torah. When you study social studies or math or history, you have many people that are teachers, but so you teach 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4. Mathematics, then you have multiplication, 8 times 8 is 64, and then you do division, and then you do some stuff which nobody understands, calculus and trigonometry. It's words for things which nobody understands, but they have to make a living, the teachers, so they call it fancy things. But what it is...
These courses were all required before you come here.
Yes, absolutely. But nobody understands it. So when you teach it, there's a knowledge, and the knowledge the student gets, and they acquire the knowledge, the more they study, the more they'll learn. In Torah, there's an unbelievably different phenomenon, and that is, the more you study it, you will gain geometrically the knowledge compared to the effort you're putting in. Because you're beginning to see with the light of God's original creation, which is the light of pattern, and if you can see in that light, you'll see way beyond what you naturally should have been able to see. And I'm telling you, this is truth. I'm telling you, wait till I'll answer all questions. I'm telling you, this is truth. That when you study Torah with pure intent, and with the intent that it actually means something to you, you will find that your ability to absorb knowledge is vastly more than the effort you put in. But the effort you put in has to be immense. And that's just a dilly-dally, I should know everything. The Talmud tells us, what's the path of the study of Torah? That Allah is Tisha, and you sleep on the ground, you drink measured water, you eat a little bit. It's hard for us to do that. But it means you lessen your partaking of the world of physicality, and you put all your efforts into discovering the patterns of absorbing knowledge, but not just knowledge out there in which your gaining of knowledge will be arithmetic, trigonometry, be arithmetic, but in Torah, properly studied with intent, your knowledge will be geometrically grown. And you wonder, I don't know if you ever met a great Torah scholar, but you wonder, it's impossible for them to know what they know. They can't know what they know. I don't know if you ever, a Talmud, the people who study one page of Talmud a day finish it in 7.5 years,
Right.
right? And these guys know it backwards and forwards. Not because they're geniuses, some of them might be, but because they put their heart and their soul into knowing it, and they were granted light. That's the light of the menorah, which is not accessible only to the physical menorah. It's represented through the desire to connect with that light. And that's what the menorah represents, and that's what God told Aaron. The gift that you give, because it says, Sisei Kohen Yishmeru Das, one of the jobs of the Kohen is to teach Das, to teach pattern of how to understand Torah. That's one of the jobs of the Kohen. And through that job of the Kohen, you will always be able to have access to that light. And that's how the gift that I've given you, the menorah, to teach the Jewish people, to lead the Jewish people, is a gift that lasts forever. The offerings, sadly, the offerings in the temple, they gave them, they're gone. They'll come back, but they're gone now. But your gift is forever. That's perhaps the most ultimate lesson of this week's portion. The portion is we look at it, it's really dry. Clothes of the Kohen, he wore this guy wore 4 clothes, this guy wore 8 clothes, very dry stuff. But once you begin to get into it, it begins to teach you, number one, what the idealized Jew represents, not even getting close to the nuance of negativity, of that's what this concept represents. And the way to do that is to mesh and merge self into the soul and intellect of God, revealed in its highest forms in His Torah, and that's how we're able to gain access to the light. And I guarantee this will happen to you. And I can guarantee this, if you work hard enough at it, because this is what we are told. And also a guarantee you'll get help in the most unusual of ways. If Hashem likes your learning, things will sometimes just fall into place. I'm not bragging here at all. There are times when I have a group and I can't figure something out, and I look at it right before the group is being given, and all of a sudden it's there. And it's not anything. I'm only telling you this because it's true.
Can you study Talmud one page at a time on your own? Or
Me?
No, anybody.
Eventually you can. You can't do it right off.
I mean, if
Well, you
don't
can't
pick
do it.
up
You
the
can't.
fir-
You
First
need
tractate in page one.
Well, if you have a tape and you listen and you sweat, yeah. But yeah, really, it takes a lot more experience to really. Because you have to make a pattern out of Torah.
It helps to be in the yeshiva.
Well, it certainly helps. You don't have to be, but you have to be able to make a pattern out of Torah to be able to see how things actually fit together as one. But for tonight, we'll just leave it cut at that. So the patterns of our existence allow God to reveal the patterns of His existence, because we are told, Hashem Tzilcha, He is your shadow. How you wish to perceive Him, He will be perceived. And as we perceive Him in the patterns in which He has laid out existence, He will show us the conclusion of those patterns, the Vias Gal Tzedek, with the coming of the ultimate redemption. May we meditate quickly in our days. Amen. So it'll be 8:15 now for